on preparing to get into relationship with another and dating, it'll be something that oftentimes conflict with who you are in your walk. And we got to get this right now before you get into it. What the world does is the world tells you you need to figure out what you want. You need to figure out what you don't want. You need to figure out what your non negotiables are. You need to ask them all of these questions because you need to determine who it is that they are to see if it's what you want. Because you don't want to waste your time with somebody you don't want. The whole conversation that is out there right now, from what I've seen, is one that's so focused on what it is that you want, on what it is that you desire. It's one of those situations in which you date in order to determine whether or not this is somebody that you should be with, whether or not this is somebody you should move forward with. So all of the conversation is based on that, and that could not be more erroneous. There are so many reasons why that is fundamentally wrong. As a woman of God, as a man of God. So we're going to come at it from an entirely different approach. Because here's the thing, we don't live our lives. This is going to get heavy. We don't live our lives based off of what we want, based off of what it is we desire. We don't look at something and say, based off of whatever that something is, now I get to decide whether or not I'm going to engage that thing. And if I allow you to get me into that space where I try to present that, then I'm giving you a false representation of who it is that I am. I'm going somewhere with this. You see, if you start thinking what it is that you want, what it is you desire, because the world is telling you to do that. And not only that, when this person asks you the question, you want to have answers, right? You want to be the one that, of course, these typical things are going to come up in this interview style interrogation that happens in dating from a worldly perspective. If I do that to placate you, if I do that to satisfy you, then I'm giving you a wrong impression of me. Listen to this. I don't live my life by what I want. I don't live my life by what I desire. I live my life by what God wants. I live my life by what God desires. What I want, what I desire, I put that on the cross. I deny my wants. I deny my desires. I deny myself. I take up my cross and I follow Jesus. That's what I do. So why in this dating situation is the focus on figure out what you want, figure out what you don't want, figure out what you non-negotiables. That's not how I live my life. If I start moving into that, if I start focusing that, and that's incompatible, that's incongruent with who I am fundamentally. I'm giving you the wrong impression of me. I don't live any other part of my life in that way. Why would I approach relationships in that way? Not just a kingdom spouse, but kingdom friendships. I don't approach my life in that way. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in your wants and your desires and your needs in a relationship from that perspective, because that's not how you live your life. What do I want? I want what God wants. What do I desire in a relationship? What God desires in a relationship. What are my non negotiables? I have none. Why? Because if God tells me this is who I'm supposed to be with, none of that matters. All that is going to do is come against what it is God wants, God desires. We're going to talk about what we need to look at and how it fits within who we are as servants of God, as children of God. Because there are some things you want to consider. There are some things you got to ask, but you got to make sure it's in alignment with who you are as someone that's following God, that's following the Lord, that's submitted, that's surrendered to the Lord. You see, I need you to know that. I don't care how you receive it on the other side and say, oh, why she ain't got no non-negotiables? She ain't never thought of this? She just ain't got no wants, she just ain't got no needs. Because that's in alignment with who I am. And if you don't understand that, if you don't, if you're not okay with that, then you have to take that up with the Lord. Because I have to be who it is that I am in God. That's how I live my life. What are your non-negotiables in life? What are your wants? What are your desires in life? Is that how you live? So why would you put an emphasis on that in relationships and in dating? I need you to get the correct view of me. You see, it's interesting because there are so many people that'll ask me that today. What do you want? What do you desire in life? Where you want to live? Where you want to work? What you want to do? And my response to that is always whatever God wants. I have to lay down my wants. I can't get into the wants and the desired lane, because if I do, that's going to be my point of emphasis. And that's not, it's what God wants, what God desires. Would I like to live in a 6 bedroom mansion with all of that? Not if it's not what God wants, because I'm focused on who God wants me to be and what God wants me to do. And if that want is incompatible with who God wants me to be and what God, it's not going to work, and I'm going to have a difficult time. So guess what? I understand that God's going to bring me into the type of lifestyle that is congruent, that is compatible, that is conducive to who it is that he wants me to become and what it is he desires me to do in this season. What are your wants? What are your desires? What do you want to do for a living? Whatever God wants. I lay them down. I lay them down. What do you want in a man? See, if I start laying out all of these things that I want in another person, if you start laying out, if you're a man, all these things you want in a woman. Now, when I say man and woman, I shouldn't have to clarify that, because if you're a man thinking you want a man, or a woman you want a woman, you ain't there yet. It's time for you to go spend some time with the Lord. This ain't a conversation for you yet. You are far off. And that's not a condemnation. That's not a judgment. It's just you need to go spend some time with the Lord so he could work that out. So so we already going to establish that with a man or a woman. So I don't have to keep going back to that. But I can't be in this space where I'm like, this is what I'm looking for, because I am not looking for. God will bring me who he desires me to be with. And if I get caught up in my wants and my desires and my needs, that is going to distract me